Are we turned on? Yes, we are. Good morning, good morning. It's 10:30 on the dot. I am bloody Swiss and I'm always on time. And I'm trying to haul out here. They told me to be here at 10:30. No one there. Learning by Doing presents The Mad Dash. Watch us every Tuesday morning on YouTube. Join me and multiple crew members as I take our Crowley catamaran from Sydney, Australia all the way up around the top to Lombok in Indonesia. Made possible by our patrons. Thank you very much, you guys, and also our sponsors here on board for this trip. Thanks so much, guys. You can also follow us along on Marine Traffic or Vessel Finder. Trade Runner is the name. Anyway, I'm in Townsville. This is Rosshaven Marina. I'm hauling out to repair the damage done to my boat by a commercial catamaran, sailing catamaran down the Whitsundays a couple of weeks ago. Not ideal, not ideal. Obviously the damage is not ideal, but today is also not ideal. I'm on my own and there's 25 knots of wind in here and their travel lift is 7.2 meters and I'm 7 meters. So 25 knots of wind and it's pretty much from behind. And I'm going to get pushed in there fast. I'm going to have to basically go in reverse, like go in forwards but with my engines in reverse to slow me down, and at the same time try and steer without anybody up the front telling me where the front is. So it's going to be a bit of a mission. I rang them in advance and obviously they know the wind situation, but I hope they have some guys there with poles or something. I don't know. This could turn out to be a bit of a disaster, to be honest. I don't know, I guess I could always pull out, but the wind's like this for the next few days. Yesterday was beautiful, obviously. They're probably sitting around on their thumbs doing nothing yesterday. I actually took the Daggerboards out this morning because they stick out wide. Well, one of them does, one of them's broken. So that sort of gives me a bit more width and less things to hit. So as it turned out, I actually had to reverse in, which made it a lot more difficult. I had to reverse in because of the forestay couldn't fit in their machine, whatever. So they told me I had to back in, which made it even more difficult because, yeah, you've just got, I mean, obviously I was standing at the back then so I could see the slings, but as soon as I got close, I couldn't use the engines anymore to steer the boat because the propellers would get fouled in the slings. So as you can see, the tide was low, so the concrete, there's no walls, so the boat was actually going under these concrete ramps that the machine was on, but it was too high up and I could hardly reach it to push the boat out, and at 25 knots it was just getting forced in and it nearly went under the whole bloody thing, to be honest. Luckily there was a couple of guys up there with long poles, but on a cat there's not much rigging for them to push against, and yeah, it was a bit of a disaster, but we got it in and I got a few extra scratches on the boat, and if I'd just been hauling out for antifoul and normal stuff, I would have been really pissed off. But because the boat's anyway damaged and I was going to have to do paint jobs and things like that, I was like, whatever, it's just a couple more scratches. And yeah, luckily I managed to find another guy, an old guy on a boat that is in the yard as well, and he managed to come on with me, and that probably saved me, to be honest, because he could be up the front and grab ropes that were thrown down from the top and sort of control the front of the boat while I was controlling the back. So we got her out, but what a mission. Looking back, I probably should have not done it, but then on the other hand, if I hadn't have, I couldn't have hauled out for another week and I would have been another week behind schedule. So it all worked out, but a few grey hairs popped out that day for sure. That was hectic. Thank you very much. That's, I got the boat in the slings, lifted it up. The boys did a real good job in the end. I was a bit stressed and it all went relatively smoothly, but yeah, it was until the thing was lifted out of the water I was a bit worried, but anyway, we got it up, got it back in the yard. Boys gave it a good wash down. The hull turned up really good after a bit of an inspection. By the time they dropped it down on some blocks, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I didn't get much more done that day. Quite an interesting boat on the hard stand next to me. This boat here was found with 250 kilos worth of cocaine, valued at 60 million. They just cut a hole in the hull, put the stuff in there and welded it closed, and yeah, they got caught. It's day number 2, I think, here on the hardstand. Right, so as you know, one of the Daggerboards was completely snapped in half. The other one had a couple of cracks and, you know, it just needed a bit of love. So I took them both out. So I'm giving this one here a refurb. I haven't sanded it yet, but I've sanded, yeah, here had a bit of a crack. I fixed that, epoxied that up, and I'm just gonna sand this down and clean all that one up. Over here, we've got the broken one. As you can see here, this was the crack. So what we did is cleaned out all the little pieces of wood that were bent and broken over, did a dry run, pulling it together with this strap, sort of jiggled it around, got it in really tight, and just, yeah, practiced basically that we could get it dead straight and everything, and then mixed up some epoxy with some fibrous material to make it a bit thicker. Put heaps of that in the whole crack joint on both sides, and then just pulled it together and wiggled it around, got it straight and stood it up on its edge. And I checked it a few times while it was going off that it was dead straight, and it seems to be dead straight. So today I'm going to take this strap off and start sanding this area. So basically how I'm going to fix this, because obviously this isn't strong enough, it's just to get it into one piece. So starting here, I'm going to come back about 1/2 meter on each side, and I'm going to dish it out. So it's going to be deeper here. I'm going to sand it out. It's going to be deeper and it'll come back to 0 here. And so deeper, 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 shallower, shallower. I'll do 5 layers of fiberglass. I'll start with a narrow one around the crack, and then a slightly wider one, and wider and wider and wider until I sort of get out to where I've dished the area out. So that'll be 5 layers, each overlapping each other, and then that'll be the strength. As you can see, where it broke is actually well above the waterline. So it's this is the waterline, and so this here is actually the break, and that's up inside the cassette still. So it's not as bad as if you'd hit a log and break this Daggerboard off under the waterline. It's pretty hard to repair that strongly, but because this is quite far in the cassette, there's actually a lot of load even below that break. So pretty confident. And Jeff Cruz, who's, you know, the Crowther godfather who actually owned and built this boat, this is what he suggested to do to fix it, so I'm pretty confident. And the main part was getting it straight. As you can see there's a bit of rot on that corner, but that's not really, you know, it's nothing structural. I'm just going to dig that out, I'll cut it out, sand it back to where I get back to clean, strong wood, and then I'll laminate a piece of, I've got a piece of teak I found lying around. I'll just laminate that in there and glass over it quickly, and that'll be all good. So that's the Daggerboards. While I'm out of the water, obviously fixing the damage from the collision, I'm also doing anti-fouling and a couple other jobs, just because hauling out is bloody expensive and a pain in the arse, especially in a catamaran. So I'm doing that. So I've completely sanded this hull. There's a couple of tiny little bits here I'm going to put some epoxy on. Not blisters as such, just probably a little bit of damage that was there. There's a couple of them I've sanded out. I'll put epoxy on. There's another one. I'll epoxy them up, and then I'm going to put a coat of primer over the hulls. The other hull I've done 2/3 of. I do the sanding the evening when everyone else has gone home, just because it's noisy and a bit dusty and that, and I don't want to piss everyone off, so I do that when I go home, and then after that I can go straight to the shower. Right, so one of the many jobs I'm doing in this boatyard, and this has nothing to do with the damage I got in Ellie Beach, but while I'm hauled out I'm doing a few other jobs, as, yeah, why not? I'm hauling out and no one likes to haul out, so I might as well get them all done. One of the jobs is changing the cutlass bearings. The starboard side is really wobbly. I took that one out this morning, and that's over at the mechanic getting checked, but I'm going to show you how I'm taking out the port side one. So down here you see, this is the dripless seal, so I have to undo that, and then this coupling in here. Have to undo these bolts. I won't take the coupling off. This is basically just clamping the shaft in, and undo this grub screw right here. That goes down into the shaft, stop it spinning, and then I should be able to pull the shaft out at the back. I'll show you downstairs in a minute, but on this boat I've just lifted the rudders right out so the shaft can just come all the way back. It's pretty simple. So after undoing the clamp in next to the gearbox, I came outside, got a lump of wood and basically just start sort of tapping, belting the shaft. I was just banging against the anode that's clamped onto the shaft, and all I really needed to do was break the sort of clamp seal, and once it started moving then I could pull it out by hand, and as you see I just slide the thing right out. It was longer than I expected though. Then I walked it over to the mechanic's shop where he was put it on a rig to check it for any deviations or bending.
Flickering a bit, but the shaft's just...
Yeah. So I won't worry about it then. And what about that pitting? Did that clamp, is that alright, you reckon?
Yeah, that'll probably be alright. Bit of pitting down here as well.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
From the bearing.
Yeah.
That's from sitting. I'd say it sat somewhere for a while.
Oh, this boat, it didn't get used much in the last 10 years.
And it's just ate into that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the humps on the bearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's the ribs, yeah. What's happening here, we had a bit of a win actually. I had the fiberglass expert from here come over and have a look at it. And I thought, my thinking was that we'd have to take this wooden strip off and then sand the damage back. Well, I've already peeled this off, so it's about as far as we'd go, but sand the damage back all along, all around, and put a few coats of fiberglass over there and then fair it up and put this back on and fair it up again. But what he actually pointed out is there's nowhere damage to the fiberglass at all. There's no damage to the fiberglass, you can't even see the fiberglass. So what's actually happened is this popped in and popped straight back out again, and fiberglass is actually very flexible. You watch in a little runabout or a fiberglass dinghy, when you're going through waves, it actually like flopping around. That is very flexible. But what's not flexible is bog or fairing compound. And so all of this along here, basically this has been fed down onto the wood, and it overlaps onto the wood. And so there was in places 10 mil of fairing compound to make these nice round covings here. And so all the cracking and all this material that came off was just actually bog. And so once we cleaned that back and really looked at it, and this is all like hard, this, you know, we've taken this right back now as far as we can. Well, it's still sticking here, you know, so it's not coming apart. And everywhere there's no fiberglass damage at all. So it's just flexed and come back out. So it was really good news. So we don't have to take this wood off, because that's quite hard to replace and make it look like nothing happened. So I've just got to sand a bit here and key this up a bit, and then we're just going to bog it again. Like, that's it. It's very, very easy and simple. More luck than anything, just because here's a bulkhead, back there's a bulkhead, and the impact just happened to be right between bulkheads where it was flexible. If it had been on a bulkhead where there was no give, it probably would have done damage. But this just basically flexed in, I don't know, a centimetre or two, came back out again, and fiberglass and wood as well, obviously very good at sucking up vibration. It did its job, and it's just the bog fairing compound that's cracked and jumped out, and it's same on the inside. So don't have to do any fiberglass, and just clean it all up, key it all up so that the new bog will stick to it, bog it and paint it. This is all taken back to where it needs to be, and then I just have to sand around the edges, and then we'll get going on that. That was a big win yesterday, not having to fiberglass. Alright, so I'm finished with all the prep for the hulls and the rudders and the daggerboards, the underwater surfaces, and I'm going to put on this Jotun primer. I've put one really thin coat of this on, wait 2 hours, and then I'm going to put on another, well, I hope to get on both of the layers of Antifoul today. It's only 8 o'clock in the morning now, it's a Sunday, I'm the only one working, but whatever, it's nice and quiet. And yeah, we'll get stuck into it, make the use of this good day while it's not dusty, not noisy, and we'll get all the hulls and underwater stuff finished. So it took me about an hour all up to roll on a full coat of the primer. That went on really smoothly and really thin, and obviously it's primer, you don't have to take too much care, but it made everything nice and sealed up and ready for the Antifoul. Alright, about to put on this Antifoul. So I'm using Sea Barrier 3000. It's Carboline. It's what was on the boat before and it worked very well, so I'm just putting new stuff on. This tin here was left over from he anti-fouled the boat a few months before I bought it, so it's not even a year old, and there was a couple of litres left in there, so I'm just using that, and I've added a bit of blue to the black just to mix new stuff in with it. But I'll put this one on first, this layer, and then I'll put the blue on second, so I have a blue boat. All right, let's get going. Okay, I've put the black layer on everything. I'm pretty sure it's a 2-hour re-coating time for this sort of paint, and I think it's about 2 hours since I started. So I'm just going to start and do the same rotation that I did before. So I'll put that on, and yeah, this is going to be the blue now. Down here, the blue. We'll give that a bit of a mix. Okay, wow, this has been a long Sunday. I think it's 4 p.m. now. I just got the last coat of Antifoul on. Pretty worn out now, to be honest. But now, yeah, pulling off the... And look at the colour. It's actually, well, it's obviously very dirty, but I like this. I didn't really like this colour before, but I like it now better because this Antifoul is blue, so it's actually sort of a transition. So yeah, pull off the tape. Everyone shows pulling off the tape, and people probably think, everyone makes a big deal of pulling off the tape, but in a way it just signifies that the shitty part of the job is done. And that's, I mean, obviously the boat looks better because you've got the paint off, you've got a straight line and all that. To me, I already know that I'm going to have a straight line. That was the whole point of putting the tape on. But pulling the tape off just signifies that the Antifoul part of the mission is finished, and that is a very good feeling because it's the shittiest job. I've got new crew, John, arriving tomorrow. He's a patron of mine coming up from Sydney. He's going to stay with me as far as Thursday Island, hopefully. 2 more days in the yard, then the next morning early we go back in the waters. Now this good looking young fella is John, my new crew member all the way from Sydney. He's going to apply the Propspeed because he's never done it before, and I want you guys to see how easy it is. Any old Antifoul, old Propspeed, whatever was on there has to be ground back to bare metal and cleaned up. So next you take the packet number 1, the Prop Clean Wipe, and go over thoroughly all the surfaces that you intend to coat with Propspeed. Give them a good wash down with this wipe, and then go over it with a real clean dry rag. This will get rid of any big pieces of dust or paint or whatever. So next up is packet number 2, Prop Prep Wipe. It's in the red bag, and this does basically a similar thing. It conditions the metal for the next application. So you go over that, all the nooks and crannies, everywhere that you plan on putting Propspeed afterwards. All the metal areas need to be with this wipe, and then the same again, you wipe it off again with a clean rag, different than the last rag you used, obviously. Keep everything nice and clean. Now we've got all the surfaces clean and prepared, it's time to get some paint on. First up is the etching primer. Now part of the reason that Propspeed works so well is the paint has a very high solids content, so it's very, very important to stir this very, very well as the solids all sink to the bottom. They do provide a very good stirring stick, so don't skimp on that. Just whisk it around until everything's all stirred up nicely. Now this is a 2-pack component, so once you've mixed up the paint, you tip in the little bottle of hardener, give that another good mix, then you need to get busy because the clock starts ticking. So now you go ahead and brush or roll this etching primer on. This paint has quite a fast flash off time, so depending on temperature you only have between 3 and 5 minutes between when the first coat needs to be done and then when the second coat needs to be on. So yeah, you need to time it pretty good. In our case we've got 2 propellers, so we had to put it on pretty quick. You've got 1.5 minutes on one prop, 1.5 on the other, then you go back to the second one, put the second coat on. So it's doable, but you have to be aware and make sure you've got everything organized and there's nothing in the way, and you can just go bum bum bum, done done done, and then second coat on. As you can see, John here did very well, coped completely good under pressure and got it all done within the timer, and we were sweet and we were looking real good. Okay, the next and final coating is Propspeed Clear. This is where the magic happens. It's a silicon based coating that just, with the spinning of the propeller, stops any fouling from sticking to it, basically. Very important that you also get this done in the 3 to 5 minute window. Very, very important. The top coating is really thick material, but it's self-levels, so you want to use a pretty decent brush, and you can just brush it on pretty roughly actually, and it comes out quite nice. You just have to make sure there's no sags or runs, because you want to have a very smooth surface at the end. But if there are any little sags on the tips of the propellers, the next morning, once it's hardened, you can actually cut them off with a razor blade and leave a nice clean surface. So it's relatively user friendly. Now, one thing, because it's clear, it's sometimes a little hard to see if you've applied it to the whole propeller or not. If you look on an angle in the light, you can see a dull or a without luster sort of patch on the propeller. That means you haven't put the clear coat on. So you need to make sure that you really have a good look around all the surfaces before you finish, and make sure you've really coated everything with this clear coat. Propspeed needs an absolute minimum of 8 hours after application before you can launch, and they advise up to 24 hours for it to be fully cured. Thanks for that great work there, John. I'm sure now my props will be spinning free of fouling, probably around up to 18 months. Okay, so as far as fixing the Daggerboards, I did not film any of that. I'm pretty terrible at filming stuff when I'm working. I get my head stuck in it. I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I just barrel through something, and then at the end of it I'm like, ah, damn it, I didn't film anything. And that's what's happened again. Anyway, as you can see here, this is the dished out Daggerboard. You can see where the wood's visible, that's dished out. And there's already 5 layers of fiberglass on there, so I put 3 layers overlapping, each one slightly bigger than the other, of chop strand, and then 2 layers of heavy woven biaxial over the top, and they were the 2 big layers at the end. Let that cure for a day and a night, and then clean that all up, and then put a layer of epoxy fairing compound over it to bring it back to the right level. And that took a couple of goes, you know, just put it on, let it settle, sand it back, put a straight edge over it, make sure if there's any highs and lows, fill up the lows, grind it back again, and we got it like perfect. I guarantee if I laid them side by side now, you wouldn't be able to pick which one was which. And as you can see here, we got the paint on, they're looking brand new, much better than ever. I also laminated and glued in a new piece of wood up on the top corner there, so faired that in as well. Everything's looking tickety-boo, brand new. As far as the impact on the front there, that was just a matter of, as I said, cleaning it up, keying up the fiberglass for it to join onto, and then getting some epoxy fairing compound and slapping it in there. I made up out of cardboard a shape that fit the coving at the front and the back, and then just used that to join those 2 pieces up basically. So just fed that into the wood, and as you can see, looks good as new. All good. Did the inside as well. I haven't done the final coat of paint on there, but on the outside I put some primer on there, and then some International Perfection, and that just matched up with the old paint perfectly. And I bet now if you would look at the boat, you wouldn't know which side was hit and which side wasn't. So very, very happy. Alright, we are finally going back in the water. So happy. The boat's looking pretty amazing. It's been exactly 7 days since I hauled out. I got all the collision damage fixed and more. New cutlass bearings, rebent the propellers a bit, did a lot of work on the hull, a lot of little painting jobs here and there, and yeah, she's looking fantastic. Can't wait to put her in. First, before we leave, I have to just check that the new packing glands aren't leaking, so I put new ones of them in while I had the cutlass bearings out, while I had the shafts out. Make sure they're not leaking, and then yeah, off we go. So stoked. Big success. Right guys, I'm just finishing up this video here. I thought I'd say a couple of things to finish up with. Good response to the last video, the collision video, obviously. In general, very supportive. I wasn't trying to get any sort of sympathy or anything. There was just a very honest, well, my side, obviously, I don't know what the other side is, but my side, an honest review of what happened. In no way am I trying to say that I was blameless in any of that. Obviously it takes 2 to tango. I was not paying enough attention. I should have seen him further away. Obviously, I've got a blind spot with the sails up. The weather was bad. He should have seen me. He should have seen me easier because I had sails. It's a bigger target for him to see. But anyway, I'm no way saying that I am blameless. And those of you who are like, oh, it's not 90%, 10%. If you're qualified to think that, okay, fair enough. AMSA, they're professionals, that's all they do. If they say 90-10, well, I'll go with that. I would have been fine if it had been 80-20, 70-30, 60-40 even. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But what it did mean, though, was it was a professional account of what happened, and that meant that the other party saw that they were on the losing end of it and came to an agreement. End of it. It doesn't really matter who was more at fault or who was less at fault. At the end of the day, no one got hurt. There's not massive damage to anyone. I walk away with enough money to fix the boat. They don't have to claim insurance. Everyone's happy. So thanks to all of those who gave positive comments, and even the negative ones. I don't really care. It's cool. Think what you think. If people can learn something out of this, I know I have. I've definitely learned, especially in bad weather. Obviously, that's when you should be taking more care. Yeah, you know, you're trying to keep your hair dry. Stay under cover, but no, you should put on the wet weather gear and get out there and take even more care. So I've learnt that, learning by doing. It's okay, I'm man enough to admit that. Moving on, probably a fair few of you probably used to follow me on Instagram because I had quite a few thousand followers, about 20 or 30,000. A few months back I got hacked. They deleted my account. They sent me an email offering, like, kidnapping me, basically saying, oh, well, you'll get it back if you pay this and this amount of money. At the time I said, well, screw you, bugger you. I hate Instagram. I hate spending that much time on social media. So I was like, good riddance to the bloody thing. But then after a while I realised that even though I hate spending much time on it and all that, there were a lot of people that sort of didn't rely on it, but they really used it to follow what we're doing. And it was another avenue apart from YouTube. So yeah, I don't have that anymore, and I'm sort of happy. I do have more time every day now that I spend on life and not staring at a screen, which I'm happy about. Marie, meanwhile, back in France, has started a new one, not for me personally, but for Sailing Learning by Doing. So if you would like to follow us, she is doing stuff on there that is, she's writing longer form things. It's not just to post a picture and hopefully get a few fireballs and a few likes and a few love hearts. It's she's posting nice quality pictures that we've taken along the way and long form information and her thoughts and our thoughts on the picture and that sort of thing. So if you're interested in that, there's a link below here on the screen as well. Follow us, we'd be stoked, and that's a bit more real time. Obviously the YouTube can get a bit behind sometimes, so that's a bit more real time. Anyway, follow us there on Instagram. Got to say thanks to all the patrons. Very, very cool. The old bank balance taking a hammering. This whole way up the coast, the bloody mainsail breaking, all this sort of stuff. Australia just in general pretty much just dissolves your money as soon as you set foot on land anyway. So and now with this, lucky enough, as I said, I got a good settlement, which was enough to pay for this haul out. But definitely you patrons make it possible that I can sit down for a couple of days per week to make these videos to show you, because otherwise I would not be doing that. Obviously it's a huge amount of work that I wouldn't do unpaid for. So thank you very much for recognising the time and effort that goes into these videos, and if any of you are interested to join up, we'd be very, very welcome to have you on board. We've got a Patreon group chat that we sort of keep up to date with, and you can have personal conversations with us, even call if you want and have a good old chinwag. And yeah, there's a link down below for that as well. If you haven't done so before, like and subscribe to the channel. Very, very cool of you if you could do that. It helps us out a lot. Notifications bell also, that also helps, because then you watch our videos when we put a new one out. Anyway, next week we will be sailing again. John, new crew member on board, and hopefully that's the end of all of the bloody bullshit. And we'll just be penning it, and we're going north, sailing every day. Till then, see you guys. Bye bye.